You're listening to Cinema Red Pill. I'm Sharon.
I'm Joel.
And I'm Timothy.
Yeah, and on this episode, we'll be talking about the Netflix anthology series, African Folktales Reimagined. But before we start on that, just some things about what we've been up to all this time, in case anybody listening doesn't know. We started hosting weekly screenings at Revive. Tim, you want to hype that up a bit also?
Yeah, we're doing a movie night, a cinema red pill. We are partnering with a place in Kololo called Revive by Organics. And yeah, they have many theme nights, and Tuesday is their movie night. And yeah, so far we've had 3 of them. We are showing mainly Ugandan and African movies. And yeah, basically movies from every genre across the continent. So yeah, we're doing it every Tuesday, and yeah, you should definitely come through if you're a fan of the podcast.
Yeah. But we're skipping this Tuesday, so the next screening is going to be on the 18th of April.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that. Check our social media. That's where you can find updates about what is coming up. But yeah, we're about that. Please come through. Just happy to be recording again. We're a bit sporadic with the releases, but the things come when they come. Not
Story
much
of our
pressure
life.
Yes. But yeah, let's get into it. So African Folktales Reimagined. Some details. This is a collaboration between Netflix and UNESCO, United Nations Educational, Scientific and Culture Organization. I don't know if you guys also saw, when they put the call out, it really moved a lot. I don't know if people were also sending it to you.
Yeah, I applied also, man. Heartbreak.
Oh my God. People kept sending it to me, but I think you needed to have produced something. There was a requirement which was really I definitely didn't qualify. But was the application process long? Were they asking for a lot or just pitching? How was it?
It was basic stuff. I think they just needed a concept note. They didn't ask for much, just the synopsis. I don't even know if they needed the treatment. But what they needed though was a nice looking pitch deck. I think is what I learned. Was I got to see the pitch deck Lookman handed in. And I was yeah, that was nowhere near the amount of effort I put into my application. So yeah, there are levels. You live and you learn.
Tim, did you apply?
No, I did not.
So, you didn't even think of it? You didn't consider?
No, I didn't even see it actually. I didn't even know about it until they actually, I saw people being announced and stuff. That's when I actually got to know about it.
You know what? That's something we should start doing. Should start posting these things also and helping people out, man.
Yeah, that's true. We should share all those film development opportunities, especially for Ugandans and East Africans.
Definitely. Okay, that's something to consider for socials. We should start adding those. But now the thing I just recently saw, I think, was a film submission. But yeah, we'll be posting that stuff up for filmmakers. I saw this thing. I think people would send it to me because I don't know, if in my family and stuff, them knowing that I'm just into movies, they see something big and they're like, this must be an opportunity for you, which was a bit funny because I definitely didn't qualify. But it was then months later that they made a shortlist of 21 people. And on that shortlist, Lookman was still the only Ugandan. There were about 3 Kenyans and it was really spread out. But Lookman still at that point was the only Ugandan who got through at that point. And each filmmaker was given 90,000 USD to make their films. They shortlisted the 21 to 6. And yeah, these are the films that have come out. So let's get into it. I wanted us to first start off with a brief ranking. I hope you
You
guys are
start
okay.
things off with violence like that.
Yeah, let's start with violence and then get into it. So I think we should each give like I think we should each give like a ranking of from favorite to least favorite, and then we can go one by one, like in the order that they were released on Netflix. I
Okay,
shall
cool.
Okay.
start. Don't worry.
Yeah, please go.
First blood,
Jump off that cliff fast.
you
Let
know?
me just okay. So I will start by saying I feel like my favorite and my least favorite are like the most clear to me. So my favorite is Enmity Jin, the one made by the Mauritanian. That is like by far my favorite. Like I was just frothing at the mouth for that one. I was like, oh. I watched it even twice over. So I love that one. It stood out for me from all of them. And then my least favorite are Mamlambo and Anyango and the Ogre are like at the
Mm,
bottom for me. The three in the middle between Katera of the Punishment Island, Halima's Choice, and Katope, those three
yeah.
like mix and match for me. Like I
Ay,
prefer
ay, ay.
one at some point more than the other each time. But those
Mm,
three, especially
mm.
between those three are right in the middle. Like I like a lot about each of them, and as well as I have reservations on the other side.
Yeah.
Katope, yeah. So those three are right in the middle. So yeah, I've cheated in my not real ranking, but my rankings are
Mhm.
those.
Ale. But it's okay.
Joel, you can do your ranking next.
Oh, my favorite one was Enmity Jin as well. Absolutely loved it. Set a great atmosphere right out the gate. My second is Anyango and the Ogre. Um,
Okay.
my third would be Halima's Choice. Then fourth would be Katera, the Punishment Island. Then Katope. Then Mamlambo at the very bottom. My God. But
My
yeah,
goodness,
we'll talk about that later. But yeah, that's my ranking.
Tim.
Well, I would say we have a clear winner because I would say also my favorite was Enmity Jin. I would say my least favorite, I would say the two of them, which were my least favorite to watch, were probably Mamlambo and Halima's Choice. And I would say second, I saw you say you didn't enjoy Anyang and Oga, you rated it kind of low, but I would say it's second for me. Then Katera of the Punishment Island, and yeah, Katope, basically. But my bottom two would be Mamlambo and Halima's Choice. So yeah.
Okay, this has really set the pace. Like me myself, I'm eager to hear this the motivation.
I mean, don't expect much. This is pretty much like first impression, like reviewing, like so. Yeah, let's see.
Okay, let's get into it. So, Katera of the Punishment Island is Lukman Ali's film, and I will get into like the inspiration for each one of them before we talk about them. Katera of the
Nice.
Punishment Island is not really it's not a folklore tale. It's a real place in Kawale on Lake Bunyonyi, yay, my hometown, and
Represent.
yeah. In the pre-colonial era, unmarried pregnant women were taken to Punishment Island and left to die of hunger. At the time, it was done to scare other women from having premarital sex, and also it was also motivated by the fact that virgin daughters gave a higher bride price, so it was a way also for the fathers to to scare their daughters to not having sex at all. But right now, Punishment Island is an attraction, is a tourist attraction. But if you look at it deeply, it's a cautionary tale about the dangers of the patriarchal system. What Lukman does, his
Mm.
retelling, is having Katera get rescued off the Punishment Island along with some other women who were abandoned on it, and she's devastated about losing her baby. She does not want to like go far away. He tried when Wawuyo's character breaks them away, he tells them to go far away like Tumbara, but she insists on staying and settles in a village, and then lets Wawuyo's character know that she wants to revenge the loss of her baby. So it's more of a revenge tale against the people that put her on the punishment island and some other wrongs they had done her before that. I think I got most of it. So I'll start with my thoughts. Yeah. I liked it. It was very Lookman. Like Lookman really is here to have a good time. I was quite wondering what Lookman would do, because I feel like it's a bit clear that the prompt for this was, or like all the films that have a lead woman, I think Lookman's is the only that has a co-lead that's a man. And I was wondering what an NGO-wise Lookman would look like, but he's really not NGO-wise. He's still being hardcore Lookman. So he has all his actiony scenes. Here he seems to be way doing more. He talks about it also in interviews about the Western part of it. But yeah. And you can definitely see him playing around with that. I feel like I have like a sentimental bias with this film in particular because they are in Kawale and they are using Ruchiga. It's like nice to see like Ruchiga being spoken. So I keep having that kind of sentimental value even when I keep thinking of the things that I didn't like about it. But it was nice. But although like Wawuyo's Ruchiga and the lead actress, what's her name? I'm sorry I didn't pick her name. Man, the Ruchiga is so bad.
I wanted to ask how authentic was that Ruchiga?
Karababito Tracy, yeah, huh? It was bad, but I could tell. I don't know if either of you also noticed the woman who was playing like the mother figure in the village. She was being dubbed. Like they were, you would not.
Really?
They were actively. I highly suspect because Haruchiga was legit, and they would keep doing that strategic angle where you're not really looking at her face and the movement with her mouth. So she sounded really dubbed to me. And then when Katera meets one of her other village mates in the village, that guy's Ruchiga was perfect, like perfect. So you could really tell the difference once he came on and started speaking. I really liked that, and the music is great. I don't know if you guys have seen on Quad A social media. They have a behind the scenes of creating the theme with a choir, and it's really, really cool. Check them out. I follow them on Instagram, Quad A. They're a sound engineering company who do Lookman sound. They even did it with him. They went with him to Nigeria. No, not going with him, but they worked on the sound for Brotherhood, which is the Nigerian film Lookman directed as well. Check that out. Yeah, so I love the music as well. Although, same with the costuming. The costume is inspired by Kabaka Mwanga, which I got to know afterwards. I was really like, what is with the Arab getup? That was the first time I saw him. But finding out he was motivated by Kabaka Mwanga, I was like, okay, that's a choice. And also he mixes. There's a point where they sing Jabala. The song that they mix Luganda culture and Kabale culture, but it's fine. It's not really recognizable for people outside Uganda, and it works for the film, so I was fine with that. Although it would have been nice to dig into Kabale more, like really be like accurate about the area and dig more into where the place was set. I would have liked that, but it still worked. Last thing. The things I didn't like the most were time passes. It's not clear how much time passes. And Katera has one single costume throughout the time that she's at the village. So you just can't tell, like, is this a new day? Is this, there's a way, the margin of time between when she escapes and then when she's trained. It wasn't even like much of a montage enough for me to make it feel like she has taken some time being trained by Wawuyo to become this badass in time. So that was a bit shoddy for me. And wait. Also, like, the plot got a bit convoluted. I really wished for it to be as simple as her just revenging them, putting her on the island. But they added in land, they added in the love of her life, they added in this other boy who's then over a thief. It was a lot. It was a bit too convoluted by the end there. But otherwise, I thought it was good. Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'll go. Yeah, I mean, you've said pretty much everything
Yeah.
about the film. Like, you've really done a proper like dissection of it. But I would say again, like a big part with me liking this particular shot in the collection was also like I think also very much the sentimental value of it. Was he also being a Muchiga and like hearing about this? Because actually, it's not even like a myth or like some sort of like urban legend. It's like a very like real dark past of like Chiga culture, and like him actually like bringing light to it, but again putting his own like spin of like the Western genre and all that, and actually playing around with like the costuming of the time and just like trying to show like a different like he definitely reimagined that period, which was a very real period of Chiga history. So that was something I enjoyed seeing because you don't see many stories, especially in Uganda. Films usually all take place in Kampala, and so like see actually something that I know he didn't shoot entirely in Kabale or Western Uganda, because I know there are like certain parts like the village where like these huts are set up. Like I don't think that's very common in the Chiga culture. Like it's something that's more common to northern Uganda and the Manyatas and all that. So he was actually incorporating, as you said, a lot of like different aspects of Ugandan culture and history, and like just melding it around this story set in Western Uganda. So I feel it was good to see just a very different, like something that's a genre piece, but they are set in like very real Ugandan history. Was very enjoyable for me to see. And again, I would say, as this was a short film, it's really hard to. He probably could have done more with the feature, like I imagine he could have, and maybe again the part of this segment was convoluted towards the end. Was perhaps again he's working in like a very limited medium, like the short film. So I imagine if it was a feature, he would probably like explore more things. But again, I actually enjoyed more just the revenge aspect of it all. Like you're right, you couldn't really tell how time passed because they really don't show that as much, so you don't get to see like Katera's growth into this badass that she becomes. But yeah, it was like as a simple revenge story, it worked. So I would definitely, and of course the visuals are great. Like Lukman has his visual style like down to a T. So yeah, it definitely worked as a whole for me. Yeah.
All right, I'll go next. Yeah, for me it was of course the heavy Tarantino thing that's always going on in his films. So this one was like Django Unchained and Kill Bill smashed together. And yeah, like Sharon said, Lukman is here to have fun. So I enjoy seeing him having fun and paying homage in that sense. I loved the double entendre of like having a Western genre in Western Uganda. Like I just thought that was a funny little thing.
Western.
A proper Western, double Western. And I really dug what he was trying to go for, which of course you have like the revenge story. You have this mentor with a shady past, played by Wawuyo's character, played by Wawuyo. I was really hoping to dig more into what he had done. He seemed like he was like a former collaborator. I think they hinted at that in some flashbacks. That he was on the other side. Then there was that the dude played by River Dan, the thief. And yeah, I was like, what's his story? And I get that he was trying to follow the trope of the Western, where the hero puts together a posse. and they ride into town to take down the big bad gangster. Um, yeah, I think the issue with me really came down story. You can't knock the visuals as usual. They're really amazing. Um, Sharon has shed enough light on the Richiga. I'll leave that alone. But I think like with all his films, it always feels like it's the first act. I always feel like the rise to action is like just happening. And when we're rolling the credits, it feels like the adventure was just beginning almost. So even at the end of this one, when she kills the big bad general, I don't know what ranking he was, when she takes him out, it was like, it felt like there was going to be something more. Like there'd be these repercussions, and maybe there's this bigger, badder guy that comes after them, maybe one of the colonials. So yeah, it felt like there were a bunch of chunks missing. Not only like within the story, like Tim pointed out, but also beyond that. I wish it had more time to breathe. And I think Lukman does do better in like with the feature film length. Yeah, even those have their weaknesses, but yeah, I think with like a little more room to breathe, he does a lot better because he has to have fun. I think is what he prioritizes above all else, and that's why the movie was still good. Unlike those bottom two ones like Mamlambo. Like, at least walking away from this one, I was like, there's some cool shots, there's some fun action. The stuff with the Gatling gun was insane. Having a scene with the horses as well was insane. I had so many questions, like, how did you accomplish this? Who's your horse connect? Like, like those are the things that entertained me in the background. Even trying to catch, like, hey, is Wawuyo really rowing that canoe? Like, all the way. Like stand doubles are where in UG. So I really enjoyed the love that goes into all his productions, really. And I think that's why his movies continue to connect with people on the level that they do, despite whatever weaknesses might be pre-existing. But yeah, I'm looking forward to his next movie after this.
He keeps posting stuff with like kung fu, so I think that's the next one.
Oh, yeah.
Like on his
Ubuntu uppercut.
yeah. So
I hear
that seems
it.
to be his next plan.
Yeah.
Joel, you talked about like trying to clock like what things are happening. I think that's where like you can see the budget. Like I feel like he's usually having to like hide stuff, but here he could show things. I was for the scene that I thought the where I thought, oh, stunt people was Michael Wawuyo, the dad. I don't know if he's senior or he's just Michael Wawuyo.
Yes.
He's like thrown into the water. I was like,
Yeah,
nice!
impossible. I was like,
I
impossible.
No, like, no. There's one question that I have about that scene because like he ties his like chain to this like heavy metallic like statue.
Yes.
Yeah, like the thing, I think it's like the Venus something. So like I don't know, it's like what's like was there like some sort of like underground, I don't know, like meaning or something to that, or was it just like a cool thing, like this guy being chained
like
to art and being dumped in like Bunyoni?
I did not imagine it had much meaning. I think, yeah. I don't know, Joel, what you thought.
Oh yeah, I thought it was some kind of authentic Richiga totem or something, like a fertility idol or something like that. That's what it looked like. It didn't look like anything Ugandan I'd seen, but it's like, oh, I guess it's interesting. I think those are one of those creative liberties. I don't think Lukman cares about details or authenticity. It's like, this works for my scene. It is a tool. I'll use it and have fun, and that's it. So yeah, that one I also just let go. Like, this is not the movie for this.
I know. Is there anything else you guys have to say about Katera before we move on to the next?
I think I've said a lot.
Yeah, I'll just say I would be interested to see him tackle it on like a feature film length level. But knowing him, he's probably just moved on to the next project. You tend to not want to look back. Like, I've finished that thing, let me go do the next thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my final comment.
Alrighty. Let's go next to Halima's choice. So Halima's choice is an entry from Nigeria, directed by Korede Aziz. So Halima's choice, the folktale that is based on is about a wealthy man called Al-Haji who asks for Halima's hand in marriage and offers a large sum of money as bride price, so her parents are eager to accept the offer. Halima is hesitant to marry Al-Haji because she's in love with a man called Musa, and she decides to run away with Musa, but he falls ill and she returns to her parents for support. They're reluctant, but they later realize they were wrong for pressuring her. So it's more of a tale about accepting Halima's choice. That's what the original folktale is usually based on. For the film, this retelling, there is no three-way. Halima is also still being going through an arranged marriage, and her parents want her to do that. But now she's to make a choice between the old world and the new world. They have like, what can I call it? There's a virtual world called Napata, and the people in the area where Halima stays, I've forgotten its name, have chosen to not be a part of that world. When a stranger comes around, they're suspicious about who he is, but he comes off as someone who's okay. But later on, they find out that Halima then finds out that he has like a chip. There's a chip they put on their head to go into that world, and then he admits that he's actually not human. That I didn't get so much about that, but then it was a bit confusing. But the villagers come kill him, and then Halima makes the choice. Like, she's in this limbo of choosing either going to the Napata or staying, but the ending shows her choosing for neither. So that ends up being Halima's choice. That's how I took it. I think I don't want to start with my thoughts every time. So I think, oh, Joe, go first.
Yeah, I just want to say this is the best NGO film I've ever watched. Usually when I'm like curating, like over the years, I've had to sit through some really bad NGO short films, man. But this one had effort, and it wasn't trying to over preach. Like, it embedded its things in there. And it put so much effort, I think, into like the lore and the world building. I really appreciated that. It's almost like a new religion where people like are uploading themselves to a cloud, just living out whatever paradise fantasy they want. Like, I just loved what the world was. And I liked being in it. That dude, what's his name? Musa, the stranger that came to the village. Yeah, I also didn't quite get the like, I got that he was an android. I thought that was interesting. Then of course the villagers did the Frankenstein monster thing. But that mob justice thing was so hard to watch. I was like, Bambi. He just came to observe, but and it was a bit soap opera ish, especially towards the end. Like, she flees and she comes back, and anyway, it was a bit muddled at the end, but it started off with like a lot more promise for me. So it gets high marks really for the concept and the amount of effort that went into an NGO story. Yeah, that's about it from me.
Yeah, I think yeah, because I actually mentioned that I didn't really rate Halima's Choice that much. Um, and I yeah, like again, like of all the films in the collection, it's probably the one that I found least memorable. And again, a big part of it also was the acting. Like the acting just put me off. I don't know why. Something about chick who was playing
But
Halima, and
that's
like just no, like just the end scene where like she breaks down. I was like, I am not believing any of this. Like but
Bambi.
yeah, but then again, the thing is like again, you talk about the concept of the film itself, and yeah, so there's the community has chosen to like to shy away from like the world of like AI and people uploading themselves to like the internet or like enhancing themselves in some way. So like there's this aspect of which is something people are already like talking about right now of like transhumanism of like in the future when people will have to like actually like integrate like semi like say, Neuralink and stuff, all that kind of talk of people becoming part cyborg. Like that's perhaps the next frontier, and that could again also, if it ever came to that, that would also bring like a whole host of like moral questions and stuff and moral debates in society. So I feel like in a way there was that they could have like maybe confronted or like gone deeper into, and that concept of just making that very clear, but like yeah, making it more about Halima and her choice. And as you said, I didn't even know about the folklore, and like yeah, I imagine it has its own very deep meanings. But again, like in the context of this, I felt like there was this very interesting topic that they didn't really go that deep into. I mean, they kind of like built the world and shed light on it, but they didn't go into it as much as I would have wanted. And instead, they focused on the story of Alima, which I do get like the issue of like, yeah, as I said, it feels like an NGO film, but like, yeah, I just feel like if they were really going to reimagine something, they would maybe like do something that really has to do with that kind of discussion of what it means to be human and like love across like who knows whatever sort of like moral boundaries people set in society, stuff like that. But I felt that wasn't gone into enough, and that's like it kind of threw me off. And yeah, I just wasn't feeling it. But yeah, maybe I was expecting too much or something. But
Mm.
yeah, I feel the potential was there to actually push in those directions, and it would be like something that's yeah very revealing of like what's happening in the world now as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's as like you had like already. I don't know. You wanted more from the film, as if.
Yes, yes. Like when I saw how it started off, and like just like the chief like preaching to these people who are sitting, and they're all like, you can see, yeah, these are the people, and like they're talking against them doing that. I felt that would be something that would be explored more, but it was just like the mob justice thing at the end, and like it being like Halima. I don't know if that's like Halima's choice just didn't mesh well with like the whole concept of like they didn't mesh the two ideas well enough for me. That's
Yeah.
pretty much it.
I think I'm in agreement with you guys. Like it starts out quite strong. The acting is not great, and then the ending is just too shoddy, too messy. Like they didn't stick any landing. Like even them killing the guy. Like I hope he was called Musa. Them the kill is killing was over anticlimactic. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's like I should feel something real. Like the setup wasn't enough to make it gut punching, and even when Halima makes her choice, it's not relieving as a viewer. It's just like, oh, okay. It's just like they didn't finish the landing properly, and the potential is there. I think, which is even the sadder part of it all. It has like if it worked even better than it does, the way it is right now is a good film. Like it could really have hit and be greater.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Any other thoughts on Halima's choice?
Oh yeah, in parting, I would say I also liked how the Napata world looked
Mm-hmm.
like the effects that were used there, and the production design. Yeah, I think it was mostly the production design I thought was amazing. Felt like they poured a lot of money into that scene. So yeah, that's one more thing I really liked.
That's dope. I Yeah, I listened to a Nigerian talk about this film, and they were really talking about how they liked it because it's like set up country, like in a different area, not the town, and how most Nigerian films are set like in Abuja and Lagos, and the language. So they had like the way we are sentimental about the Ruchiga in Katera is the way that person was talking about how sentimental it was to see the film where it was set and the language they were using.
Okay.
Yeah. So we go next, Anyango and the Ogre. This one is from Kenya and it's directed by Volin Ogutu. So this one, I know I'm first.
Started with
Yeah,
shade at the beginning.
wait. Kale, I'm quite shocked you guys like it. But first, the Anyango and the Ogre is it's like a book. It's a kid's thing. It's like a kid's tale, and it's similar to what the film says. No, actually, it's not. It's not at all. Anyango is actually fetching in the original tale. She has gone to fetch water, and then she's attacked by an ogre, and then she fights off the ogre. So it's actually like Kiruku, just being that thing of a kid can outsmart a big beast, is what the folklore is. Here, Anyango is wait, Anyango is the mom, right? Is it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So Anyango is the mom, and there's like a blue zone and a blue zone and a gray zone. Yeah. And
Yeah.
married women enter the blue zone. Married people enter the blue zone. We're specifically following Anyango. Like you get access to the ring. And in the gray zone, there's like, darkness, sad people. Like in the beginning, what we see is gray. Then we go to her home, and then her husband is there, and violence, violence on the kids, violence on the woman, violence, and and one, and then meanwhile, one of the kids is reading the book of Anyango and of an ogre story, and a similar thing is happening, but in place of the dad, it's like an ogre. And how it ends is the kid ends up being like, would rather leave. Oh, they first of all kill him by mistake, kind of, and then end up leaving. They have to leave the blue zone and go to the gray zone, but in the gray zone, they are happy there. So this was one of my least favorite Mamlambo's crimes. I did like this movie, guys. Why?
Click on it.
It's like the movie is like domestic violence bad, full stop. I'm like, and then what? My issue with it mostly also is that the ogre story and the real life story are the same thing happening. So we go from violence to violence to violence to violence, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like for me, this is the worst, most what do they call those things? Like public service announcement. Like when you want to tell, it's like a public service announcement movie of domestic violence is bad. The folk tale, I think that I liked things about it. Like I like the colors of it. Like I liked even the atmosphere of the gray zone. Those things were strong. But for me, and I also think it's about the place that I am right now as a person. Like, Kale, you don't give me a big display of violence and not have much depth to it. Like for me, I just felt like there was not much depth. And it was attempting at depth at times. Like when they show the ogre, like they try to do a flashback, but they don't get into it. And then it's clear. Yes, we understand that people who are violent, they have a pattern of violence. Even if they had showed it, I realized I would still hate it because that is still some NGO bullshit. Like that is not what I like in my movies. I really think NGO movies are there for a reason, and they're but that's not what I'd be looking for ever.
Is that what you be subscribing for?
It's just not something that I rate. Like I understand, like people make those movies, they go show them to people who are violent. They have a purpose. But for this lineup of I expect more from filmmakers in this stance with a $90,000 budget. I don't know.
Aye,
Like
yeah.
more. Films tend to give you more. This is just way too, and violence, it was just violence the entire time. It was such a horrible experience watching it. And then I even was a bit quite bothered by, like, I kept even thinking about how this is a thing that's about women, right? And the prompt must have been about like women, and sometimes I actually like it didn't have any propaganda for me, right? Because the woman is exceedingly helpless, even down to the end. I didn't even feel
Damn.
her release at all. I don't know. I really didn't like Anyango and the Ogre, and it was like hammering the point and hammering the point. Ugh. No, I don't like Anyango and the Ogre. But let me know why you guys liked it.
Alrighty. You okay if I go next, Tim?
I can go. I mean, I don't have that much to say because she has already bashed everything I was going to compliment.
No, please
So,
continue.
but yeah,
If there's a
like,
bonus.
again, like I do get like the violence of it all was quite intense. Like I also felt it, and I'm a person who usually has like a high tolerance for like violence in movies, but I also felt it. But yeah, like after thinking about it for a while, like that's kind of the thing that I thought of, like the juxtaposition. Like yes, there was violence happening in this other like timeline, like the fantasy story world, but like yeah, I felt it wasn't as intense in the real world. Like there's a way the violence in the real world was just very like shocking. Like I don't know, there's a degree of it being like kind of whimsical in the story world and
Yes.
with the narration of the kids. Like I kind of felt it, but maybe on rewatching it, I might say that it was just as bad. But on the first viewing, I kind of felt that. And maybe another thing I really did appreciate was the acting of the kids in this. Like it's not easy to like direct kids, and I feel like they actually did a good job. Like for me, they were the best. Like yeah, the dad was like the mean ogre and all that, and the mom was like basically this very like maternal like angel type character. But like I really did enjoy the kids, especially the older brother who was like reading the story. Like I kind of like felt for the kids. I felt something there, and I actually wanted them to just be like in a better place. I believed in the characters, and yeah, so I feel like that's something that maybe like would take Anyango and the Ogre over like a bunch of the other movies. Like when I was ranking them, it actually made me feel something in a way. So yeah, that's what I can really say. But yeah, you pretty much mentioned like the juxtaposition was a big thing for me. And yeah, the performances of the kids were really like what I picked out in this. But as a whole, yeah, it's okay. But yeah, it's definitely better than a lot of the others that we're going to talk about after this, at least in my opinion. So, yeah.
All right.
Joe, you can go.
So it's a good time to bring up that this was my second favorite.
I forgot that. Oh my god.
I think it was my second as well. Second or third, probably. I think it was my second.
It was like the
The
third.
second.
It was
Yeah.
higher on Joel's list.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was even debating whether to make it first. Like that's how much I liked it. So I'm so fascinated by what your experience was of the film, and I understand why. Because here is how my experience, I think, got colored in a very different direction. Because I feel like I watched a very different movie from what you guys have described. But I watched it with Kenyans, with Kenyan women especially. So right off the bat, I got like the whole lowdown on like the Anyango and the Ogre story and all the sentimentality that carries with just being a Kenyan school child. And it's like all of them know this story and what it represents. And I think what the basic like theme of the story is like kind of like don't judge a book by its cover. Because you have this thing of like you get like this handsome man, but it's like beware, he could secretly be an ogre. And I think we have stories like that here as well. I think almost every African society has a story of the sort. So starting right off the bat, the way I framed the character's journey, she wasn't helpless. It was an internal struggle between being ostracized and stigmatized as a single woman and a single mother. Because apparently, I think about 61 or 60 something percent of women in Kenya are like single mothers now. And socially for them over there, again, I'm paraphrasing, so it could be a lot of broken telephones. So I advise everyone to do their own research after. But from what I recall, yeah, this is like an epidemic for them. So like watching it, I got the whole premise of it was like, would I rather stay with the monster and have like the social security, I guess represented by that blue zone of like being like, I have the status of I'm married, so I'm secure, my kids are supposedly secure, and we'll just keep with like trying to look good on paper, and that will be enough. Versus, do I focus on actual happiness and risk the ostracization, basically being kicked out of society, represented by the gray zone now. So I saw it as like, this was a movie very, very much where it was just about her inner struggle. And I really loved, like Tim mentioned, the kids as well. And I loved the magical realism aspect that this story had and how it was melding the folk story that the children were reading with what was happening in real life. And I really love how it was directed and shot. The DOP and director were amazing. I especially loved that scene where the dad is trying to get through the door and then the kids are in the hut. And I just love the shot they did where they made him feel so giant in the space with just like simple angles. I just loved the fairy tale aspect they brought to what's a very dark situation. So yeah, for me as well at the end, I did feel like, yes, she hadn't had that release. And I saw it as being the more subtle direction to go with it because she wasn't going to get over all her trauma immediately overnight. So yeah, I really liked it a lot for those reasons. And another fun fact, the guy that plays the dad, Lucarelli, I went to school with him in uni, and he acted in some really bad short films of mine that will never see the light of day. So I was very happy for him.
I liked his acting. I felt like he was a strong performer also alongside the kids. Actually, that there were great actors in this film. I feel like
Yeah.
I get where you guys are coming from to like it. And I see like the way I didn't feel like there's a point even you referred to the Ogre story like a fairy tale. I wish I felt that more. I really wish I felt that more. I wish I felt like a release every time we went that side. I was just feeling even more intensity and the kids again in danger this side and also that side, and that was just too much for me. Also, I want to insist that this is a me thing. Like, I get that, okay, this is such a me thing because for me, I'm like, okay, I know so much about how violence in relationships works. I know too deeply about how often women stay and how they are always conflicted, how much it affects their kids. I just know those stories too much. And I've seen it play out so many times, and it is a devastating thing that women go through. I just need a film to do more than just show it to me. I can't deal with a film just showing it to me like that. So it is definitely a me thing. I've actually seen so many positive reactions to it, but for me, I'm like, I need more than this. You can't just show me this and I allow. Like, I'm beyond So that's my thinking.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I might have missed to say, because I do agree with you as far as justification is concerned. And for me, the justification was more for the character of the father as well, because the transformation to monster in that basketball scene, which again is shot really beautifully, but the escalation to violence was insane. It felt like a little more needed to go in there. Like, I got what it meant. I got the logic of what the character was and why he was inflicting violence on the kids and the mom and blah blah blah. But it feels like the movie should have let that breathe a little more before we got to that space. But yeah, that would have meant like a longer runtime. But yeah, that would be one gripe I had with it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. The director herself, I read an interview of hers, and her response to what inspired it was actually a lot less like deep than what you've described. She said that on Valentine's Day, like that moment when like there's a lot of women receiving gifts, and it was like a hard thing being single for a while, like for a very long time, and just feeling left out and kind of like, yeah, that it was less about, I don't know if she has talked about like the stats of the single mothers and stuff, but that was her
Yeah.
description.
That's very interesting.
I know, right?
It makes it so much more interesting for me now.
Yeah, it's yeah, but
Okay.
yeah. Anything else on Onyang and the Ogre? Okay. And the next one is our consensus favorite, Enmity Jin. The Jin story, I feel like the Jin story is the most like recognizable even, like since Genie in Aladdin happened, and
Yes.
there's also other movies that reference the Jin as like bad juju. Yeah, so that one I really don't have to get into it. It's just it's a Jin in mostly in Middle Eastern like Muslim culture. In Muslim
Yeah.
culture, really, the Jin is
Arab culture.
Arab and Islam culture. It's like a shapeshifter, and then it's bad, like it's also good. It's always a mix of things. And the film explains what a Jin is. Actually, I don't have to get into it. So in this story, though, for Jin, there's an elder woman, and we first see her as a baby, and she confronts the Jin when the Jin has come and done the things in the area and caused a lot of bad. Then we go 75 years later, and we see her in a different setting. I really like that juxtaposition of that whole desert time, and then 75 years later, and someone calls the Jin, and she confronts the Jin and manages to defeat the Jin. That's really the gist of it. There's very little dialogue. It's such a quiet film. It's really nice. But Tim, I think you start with your what you think of this film.
No, I mean, I don't even really I don't think I even fully grasped the entirety of the story. But I know as far as watching it and the pacing, the cinematography, the rhythm, the acting, and just the way the whole film came together was just, I felt it was just extremely well done. Again, as you say, the concept of the Jinn is a pretty common one. It's one we are used to, at least seen referenced at least in a lot of other films. But I feel like in this one, there was kind of it being represented kind of as a generational curse of sorts. And this grandma of the family had to kind of vanquish it. So at least that's what I felt was the basic concept, at least for the film. But as a whole, just as a work of art, the way it was done, I could even watch that movie even without the sound on and just see the pacing. It was just well done and through and through. So yeah, I would say that's I just don't have one bad thing to say about it besides the fact that I haven't watched it more to unpack it and maybe enjoy it a bit more. But yeah, I felt it was a very well done film. So yeah, and again, it's interesting because it's also from it's a Mauritanian film, and
Mauritanian, yes.
yeah, and that's where like Sisako is from. So like I definitely do see like the aesthetic that they do
Oh,
have. Like yeah, so it's kind of it has parts that like mirror like Timbuktu and the like, which is maybe something we're just used because that's kind of like the like of the last maybe 10 years or something like the North African movie that everyone has kind of seen and references. But yeah, I felt it was just really well done, and like as a whole, its pacing was very different from a lot of the others. Like uh, Lookman's definitely like an action piece, and then Anyango and the Ogre does have its moments of the intense violence, and then the whimsical nature of things. Then there's the whole tech and like urban, like village, like sub-Saharan, like village setting of Halima's Choice, and I think Katope and Mamlambo. This one I think was just from a very different part of Africa, perhaps. Yeah, and yeah, I think it was just really well told, in my opinion. Yeah, you
dope.
guys can go.
Joel?
Yeah. Yeah, I really, really, really loved this film. The edit was immaculate. The pacing was beautiful. So much atmosphere. The director really let so many shots breathe. Like on a technical level, I just enjoyed watching this film. And it didn't do too much in the realm of fancy things. Has like one visual effect somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I just love the minimalism of everything. On the story side of things, I really loved that concept of the generational curse of hatred, it seemed like, or envy or jealousy, something of the sort. But I loved even just the time jump. There was like not really that much dialogue, but you have like that scene with the baby erasing the gin, and then it comes into play at the end of the film where the grandma uses babies to get rid of the gin that's coming into their house. I really loved that moment, and I think it hits home a lot for especially eastern and southern the east and southern part of our globe, those cultures, where it gives you this vibe of like, your grandmother might have saved you once and you don't even know she like vanquished some demons for you. I really loved that aspect. There was so much sentimentality, and it's one of those films I can't wait to watch again. It was absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. Same, same, same. Just so good. And like the smallest things were just so moving. I really liked how they chose to even design the gin. And I liked
Hmm.
the way the gin would move. Like the way they would even place him just in different angles in the house. It was driving me crazy. This movie was too good. Um, yeah, I liked even the subtlety in the storytelling. Like, there's a scene where one of the, like, showing the bad things happening in the family, and one of the little boys gets into an accident with a bike. And how they show it, they just show him look at a bike. The next thing you know, it's crumpled up. Like, they were trusting the audience. I just love it when people trust people to see things, because that's the stuff that motivates you to even check it out again, because you will even see more the second time. And the neighborhood felt so real. The mother, that grandmother was a great actress. My God, if I don't know how much acting she's doing, but just her on screen was really, really dope. And yeah, the baby touching. I just from the first scene, really, like the movie starts, and you're like, I am in a interested, like someone interested in like good hands, right? It was just too
Yeah.
good. So props, props, props to this Mauritanian for this film. It's so good. Anything else before I move to Katope?
No.
No,
Nope. Okay.
yeah.
Katope is from Tanzania. Director Walt Mzengi. And the folktale of Katope is similar to the film, and the difference mostly is that in the folktale, Katope is a boy, and
Mm.
same thing, he's created from earth. and he's born to an old couple, not just one woman in the folktale. An old couple can't have kids, but he can't be caught in the rain. Like the rain would ruin him. So it's more a tale of him dodging rain. Like in the folktale, the way it's described is that it's about how he manages to play with the other kids, but then ends up heeding to the rain. But that's because he doesn't listen to the parents' warning. That's what the folktale is. But Katope, the film, is also a child is molded from earth as well, and the child coming to life then led to a drought. So the people of the village tell the mom that Katope has to like go away and rain will come, and that's exactly what happens. I don't know if she goes away. Right? That ending was something I want to discuss. But yeah, I think Joe will go first on this one.
Okay. Katope is such a disappointment for me. Because when it started out, again, the Kenyans, as Will were telling me, how it's a story that's kind of similar to the Gingerbread Man, a fairy tale, except this one is made out of mud. And yeah, I think that got me too hyped the beginning of the movie. For like where we were going to go with it. I was prepared to even just watch it beat for beat, like just reproduce the fairy tale as is. I felt like the film was too abstract, and it gave me Terrence Malick vibes. That's the guy that did Tree of Life. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I liked the atmosphere of some of the scenes that were in like Katope. But the story, like the choice for the direction the story went in, I did not enjoy as much. Even if the stakes were large as well on paper, where Katope's emergence is tied to like the drought that this village has had for several years, and it's like you have to sacrifice the child so that the rains return. Like I loved all those stakes. It's just the way the story was like paced out and the scenes they decided to show us didn't feel like they were the most powerful way to represent some of the ideas that I believe the filmmaker was going for with the story. So it's like I can see from the beginning and at the end what the intent was, but in the middle, I feel like there were a few wrong choices that were made. So ultimately, it was really pretty to look at, but so disappointing ultimately for me.
Wow. Okay, Timothy.
Yeah, I mean, same here. Like, I even when I think about it now, I barely like even remember. Like, I know it had something to do with a rain ritual, and I was like, yeah, and I think a blackbird and them having to get it, but like as a whole, it just left me with a very, yeah, like I got nothing really out of it. I don't know, like, and that's again, maybe it's down to me watching it or the mood I was in, but yeah, I just didn't really get anything from Katope. It was interesting though, knowing it's from Tanzania and like the language, like the Bantu language, or some of the languages sound like also very Ugandan, like, that kind of caught me off. I was like, yeah, these people, yeah, these are basically our people, like. But yeah, outside of that, like Katope didn't really. I imagine, and you mentioned something about it being like a myth about kind of like similar to the gingerbread man and all that. And we also there's a similar myth also in like Chiga culture. And I think even like the whole idea of Adam also is, I think it has mirrors in a way, that whole thing, like in Chiga culture, the creation of man and stuff. It mirrors that, which I didn't know, but outside of that, I really don't have any strong opinions on Katope. Like outside of like, get much from it. That's it. Yeah.
So interesting. Bambi, me, I liked Katope. Bambi, I did. Like it was really, really well shot, so that took it a long way. Like, and the abstractness of it, I actually liked. I was curious about what, like, the bad thing is quite confusing, but it didn't bother me. The only thing that actually I didn't like was the ending. I just wished we had seen her wash away more. I kind of wanted to see more. I even wanted to see more of that ritual. I just wish that ending was a little more, a little longer. And Nella, when you bring up Terrence Malick, I wish they had real gone and done extended shots the way he does it, because that would have left me even more happy. So, Katera, whether Katope was, my initial ranking even had it really high, like it was second to Jin. It's just I thought about it a bit more, and I started remembering some things that lacked, and then putting in my sentimentality for Katera, like then that middle section gets a bit jumbled up. But Katope, I liked. I thought it was good.
Maybe I'll rewatch it. I'll probably have to rewatch it now. And maybe I was just in a very receptive mood at the time.
Like, I'll say it's a very inoffensive movie, by the way. That's why the
True.
feeling is just like disappointment. It's like, I liked you, but it felt like it could have gone a little higher. But I'm like, by the way, there were even some shots I think in this movie that I thought should have been in Katera. When I was imagining Katera being a bit more paced out somewhere. But yeah. So I mean, well shot film, but
Okay. And the final,
Finally.
final. But Mamlambo, my goodness. Okay, so Mamlambo is the entry from South Africa. And I think even what's more disappointing is reading about the actual Mamlambo. Like, fuck, there's so much potential there. Because
Right?
Mamlambo, it's a legendary creature. And I think people have like played with it for a while. Sometimes it's a vengeful spirit that needs sacrifices. Sometimes it's used like as an allegory for climate. Like if you destroy the climate, then it will punish you. And then also in some versions, it's also like a feminine power and meaning for fertility. It's also like one of those things like a jinn also, where it's like a blessing or a curse. But in the film now, here, explaining what they're doing, it's so unmemorable. Like me, I don't. But in the film, they open with this intro about it and how there's the water people, like this person that could be in the waterland and then the land, like the water and the land. Now they've been banished to the water, and after that, we're introduced to a woman who is giving up on herself and throws herself in the ocean to die, but then Mamlambo comes to save her. So we're in this secluded area that's all grassy and planty around. And that's where it's the most boring and confusing, because it's like, Jesus, we go through seeing her past. She was abused. They show us like 15 different newspaper covers to hammer in the point that there is abuse. Oh my God. And then on top of that, they even give us a flashback like twice because we might fail to get the point. Oh my God. And then after that, they go through something. Mamlambo is like, you're the chosen one for some reason, like you have reason to live. And Mamlambo goes in the water. I swear I was bored and confused at the same time. And then there's a point, there's a thing, she smokes like weed. There's a point her body is weak. It is just the crime this movie commits is just so boring. I simply could not with this film. It is painstakingly boring watching all these multiple things play out. And I don't know how you can have two women in plant life and bore me to death like that. I was not having it. But yeah, I think in my description of the movie, and the most disappointing way, I'm like, okay, I want to understand where people were putting their money. Like, why wasn't she more interesting as a spiritual creature? I just didn't get that choice. At least don't entertain me somehow. Anyway, I really didn't like this film at all. There is barely a thing that I could comment to it. Snooze fest of this whole lineup. Yeah. Guys, let me know your thoughts.
I mean, you've articulated everything so well already. Like I really feel like there was just nothing in this film. Like even all that stuff you're adding of like Mamlambo, like it would have been good to know that or like see a bit more of that. Like all I saw was just two ladies. I just imagine one was like some sort of witch or something who heals people. Like even all that stuff you say over my head. Like I just imagine she finds people, heals them, and initiates her to like take over from her or something. I was like, okay, but nothing. I was like, nothing like this. Yeah, I don't know what to say. I can't even like look for like, it was shot well. I mean,
Was it?
it was. I mean, no, the image quality was great. Like, but yeah, like, it's just I don't know like what to say. Like, it's just also one of those that I just really didn't get much out of. Like, along with maybe Katope and Halima, I just didn't get much out of those three at all.
I loved that the final shot, that Avatar Way of Water shot at the end, where her eyes lit up. but like I don't understand like where the budget went, because you watch Katera, you watch Enmity Jin, like you're seeing budget, right? So like watching this, I'm like, why is it two women just sitting in a forest talking? And the things they were talking about, it turned into like a medicine lessons. Like, I'm passing to you this knowledge on how to use this local herbs. Like, what? Like, the movie was like, what am I watching? Like, what is the movie? It's like we just signed up for a whole lesson. It's like Harry Potter, but with all the cool magic stuff like taken out. It's just like the class for herbs. And then she bounces, and I was left wondering, what's this chick inheriting? Is she inheriting your powers? Because you're the one who jumped in at the end and you had your eyes lighting up. So what's she inheriting? It's like, pass on my knowledge of how to use local herbs and liberate all the abused women. Like I didn't get what the point was, and I can't even say I can even try to guess what the intent or style was. Like with some of the other movies where they fall short, I'm like, okay, the director intended this, and then these things kind of got muddled during the process and they couldn't accomplish it. But with this one, I was hesitant to say, but it almost felt like lazier than the other films, because there's so much they could have done with it. And even like Sharon, what you brought up with like more stuff to do with this Mamlambo spirit. You look at Enmity Jin. They didn't use any crazy VFX. They just had a really cool costume. And I feel like they could have given Mamlambo a costume better than just some random-ish people were at home. Like, I did not understand why that was her clothing style. Like, it felt like wardrobe. They could not even spend some money just giving her an interesting, looking costume, just something to look at. Because otherwise, it just feels like there's this modern day chick who thinks she's a witch doctor chilling in the woods and telling people she's Mamlambo. But yeah, this film really irritated me, and I think it's the only one where I dozed off, I think, for like 5 minutes. I refused to rewind. I was like, whatever happened back there happened. We are going forward. And as it turned out, we missed nothing. Like, there was literally nothing being said for several minutes. It was so disappointing. And then all those flashbacks. So, Sharon, what you felt about Anyango, like the abuse. That's how I felt about these scenes. I was like, what is even happening? Like, like the newspaper clippings. I was like, what? like I get that abuse is bad, but why is it bad for her? Like, who is the character? Just, and I feel like I had to sit through the whole movie and still not get that answer of who this character was. So it's just like I watched a bunch of women doing some witchcraft in the woods, and then the movie ended. But anyway, yeah, this was by far my worst movie. I tend to like some bad movies sometimes, but I can't even as entertainment value. Like this one was just boring. There's just nothing to latch on to.
That is crap. It's straight up boring. Like the others are quite watchable things. This is a snooze fest. Oh god, they've killed me. Any more thoughts on Mamlambo, or we are done with that?
I am very done.
Okay. Any final thoughts? Just overall thoughts on this, on the African folklore reimagination, just the whole project, really. Some general final thoughts.
I think it's a really good one. I loved seeing like a catalog of all the young filmmakers that are dominating the individual industries and seeing what that work is like. I do also like that they're bringing stories that are obscure to the international world. I'd be more curious to see how international audiences respond to some of these stories. I mean, for us, there's the hype of, seeing our stories, with some budget on it. But I wonder if, for international audiences, this speaks more curiosity for stories from here. And I'm a big fan of magical realism, so I am pro stories like this being told. Shiza is very heartbroken I didn't get in, but yeah, the movies that were in there were amazing. I hope they bring in enough new subscribers for a season 2. And I also just want to say, for all the jokes and all the stuff that we said about the movies, we are, at least I am, very proud of like all the filmmakers that made it to this list. They're the pioneers, definitely. So they're the ones who are going to be making all the mistakes that the rest of us shall benefit from. So big congratulations to everybody involved in the project.
Yeah, I'll just say I also think it's a great initiative, the whole UNESCO partnering with Netflix to, give these young African filmmakers a platform. And I'm definitely looking forward to there being a season 2 and then perhaps even expanding it to have like more, more short films. And, as they keep, if it's something they keep doing over the years, there will be like, at least this, as Joe said, a catalog of like, different like African folktales and actually produce. I mean, I don't think they would cancel because, as you said, the outlay like budget wise, like per each, you said like was like $90,000 or something around that there.
Yeah.
So like when you look at the outlay, like it's something I feel they can do continuously, and like it's not as much of like a hit to their pockets as perhaps some of their other like Netflix shows and stuff like that really have to depend on ratings. This could just be in a corporate social responsibility thing that they do, and actually give more African filmmakers like a platform. And we have like 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons, and like all these great voices from Africa get a chance to actually like tell a story that can be seen like on a global platform like Netflix. So yeah, I'm just happy that like we are getting content like this. So yeah, long may it continue.
Yeah, I really, really agree. I think it has put, given that this was like funded by mostly, I think, UNESCO, I think your corporate social responsibility thing is quite accurate.
Yeah, because I actually thought it was Netflix that funded it mostly.
And it's a partnership with UNESCO, so they definitely put a lot of money in it because they really are going hard on talking about how they've done something so important. I would also like to see a version of this that's also not restricted in bounds by the motive of UNESCO as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is an initiative that can continue. I hope to see it continue. These films are great. I really have the same sentiment as you, Joel. Like, this is, I feel like this is our top tier, and it's a top tier that I'm happy to see. It's just dope to see this and what people have done. Like, we're moving in the right direction, I feel. Let's see. I also hope for people to invest in other places, because right now a lot of people, like, say the Amazon and Amazon especially has also started putting money into Nollywood. So I would wish for also those big production companies to come to the other African countries and pour some money in there for the filmmakers to make some cool things. Yeah. I can't wait to see what else comes out. Of course, we know Lukman's film is on the way. Yeah, I look forward to whatever is next. That's it from me. So I think that ends the episode. Yep.
Yep.
Thanks, guys. If you can't tell, we are recording remotely. Let me hope the sound is fire, but yeah. But this allows us to freely record more. Thanks for listening to anyone out there. Hope you enjoyed the episode. We will be back soonest. Don't want to promise, but we will be back. And that's it. So this is Cinema Red Pill. I'm Sharon.
I'm Timothy.
I'm Joel.
And bye.
People make films about themselves, what they want, what they love, what they fear most. Here we're nothing but props and their stories.